Helen Rocco checked her watch. Whoever she was supposed to meet was already 5 minutes late. Not the best first impression he could make. She'd known better than to agree to this blind date, but her assistant, Ellie Sims, insisted it was time to get back out in the world again. Although she'd downloaded and agreed to use one of the popular dating apps, her friend had specifically set up this meeting. Tonight. No excuses or backing out allowed. Of her 2 options for the evening, Helen supposed waiting here in the crowded popular bar was better than waiting alone at home for something more boring or far less pleasant to happen. Recently, she'd been receiving text messages and calls from an ex-boyfriend that veered toward obsessive and were riding perilously close to threatening. The music pulsing through the speakers and the dull roar of conversation swelled around her. After another stressful day at the office, the tension gripping her shoulders and neck was starting to signal a headache. Helen considered leaving, although that meant dealing with a bigger headache tomorrow at work if she walked out before meeting her blind date. A minor headache beat abject fear any day. She'd give him 5 minutes more. As she sipped her soft drink, her mind drifted back to Alex Gadsden, the last man to spark her interest. Spark. In reality, he'd set her hormones on a blaze. He'd been a walking, talking fantasy and had taken all her willpower not to jeopardize that perfection with a dose of reality. More than likely, Alex still was all sorts of flawlessness, considering staying sharp and in shape was part of his job description with Special Forces. He was tall and lean, and she remembered the way his muscles flexed, and the sweat of exertion left his shirt clinging to his skin. She also remembered his devastating smile and his perceptive gaze when he caught her staring at him. His eyes could flash from charming to challenging and back again during their shared time in the physical therapy gym. He'd been recovering from a knee injury, and she pulled her thoughts back from that gaping dark place. Her shoulder was healed, and it was best not to revisit foul memories when she needed to make her own good first impression soon. Hopefully, part of her still wished she'd given in to temptation and dared to ask Alex out for coffee. No doubt he would have been a sexy and satisfying rebound during a tough time in her life. Devoted to the work, soldiers like Alex didn't stick around even when they wanted to. Their willingness to step up when summoned was a commendable trait, just not the steady relationship material she longed for in her personal life. On the skinny table, barely wide enough for 2 drinks, her cell phone screen blinked with an alert. Her blind date had probably found something better to do. She gave him credit for having the decency to contact her. Sighing, she entered the unlock code to confirm what she already knew. "Hey, Helen!" She forgot the phone, her attention zeroing in on the voice that never failed to send her pulse into overdrive. "Alex!" She gawked at him, hardly able to believe it. "What are you doing here?" He held out a small bouquet of daisies. "Forgive me." It took a few minutes to work up the courage to come over. With flowers. Not even the Special Forces guys were that kind of prepared. Her phone flashed again with another alert she ignored entirely, basking in the unexpected pleasure of seeing her fantasy walk back into her life. His eyes were the soft blue of a summer sky, framed by thick golden eyelashes and laugh lines in the corners. Her speechlessness clearly amused him, and his gaze brightened mischievously. "You don't like daisies anymore." "Alex," she repeated, struggling to recover with some dignity and grace. "Oh, this was awkward. I'm, meeting someone." "I know," Alex replied, grinning now. "You're meeting me." For months, he'd regretted not asking her out when he had the chance. She was worth the wait. He didn't even mind feeling like an idiot for going to extremes to set this up when she looked at him that way. A little bewilderment mixed with that familiar interest and heat she'd tried to hide during their physical therapy appointments.
Her hair, a river of warm honey, and gold tones fell past her shoulders in loose, silky waves. And those sea-green eyes watched him with increasing merriness. She wore a soft sweater that hugged her lush curves and a skirt that flowed over her legs. Legs he remembered all too well from those hours in the PT gym. Legs he still dreamed about.
I don't understand. Her fingers curled around her phone. He slid onto the bar stool opposite her and offered the flowers again. I was in the area and called your office. You know where I work? Oh, right. She told him herself as they'd tried to distract each other from the various endurance and strength-building exercises. Your assistant confirmed you weren't seeing anyone, so I enlisted her help arranging a date for us tonight. You know my assistant that well. We've only spoken a time or two, he replied. Mostly this past week and always about you. Her beautiful eyes rolled toward the ceiling. You never asked me out before. He acknowledged that with a shrug and moved on. This wasn't going quite as smoothly as he'd hoped. He had not misread the signs of attraction in that gym, though back then, his gut warned him she wouldn't accept if he'd invited her out. How are you feeling? He asked, searching for a way to salvage the moment. This could be the only chance she gave him, and he didn't want to waste it. You look amazing. Thanks, she said. You too. Her skin had a healthy glow, and despite expected nerves over a blind date, her confidence had seemed high. Until he'd walked up and flustered her, and the shoulder he pressed. You're back in fighting shape. Something akin to grief clouded her gaze, but it cleared away with a blink. Absolutely. I drop buff army guys on a daily basis. He laughed. I bet you do. He'd assigned himself as her partner when she'd had to do some slow-motion shadowboxing. He'd thought he'd won her over the day he pretended she'd knocked him out. He'd been wrong. She'd stepped over him and kept right on going. His heart had tumbled after her. Under her fingers, her phone flashed again. She looked at him, then to her phone, and the frown creasing her forehead had him second-guessing his perfect plan. You really worked it out with Ellie for us to meet here tonight, he nodded. I was over at the bar when you walked in trying to play it cool. He extended the flowers again, pleased when she took them this time. You steal my breath, Helen. You always have. Oh, how she wanted to believe him. The way he held her gaze as though she was his sole focus sent her heart rate into a tizzy. This was hardly her first encounter with a confident and hot man who'd chosen a military career. As an office manager for one of the many doctors on the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center base, she ran across his type all the time. Well, maybe not men of Alex's particular caliber, but close enough to recognize the in-it-for-the-minute type. Are you back on active duty? She asked, torn between cutting the evening short and indulging in some time with a man who could never be more than a friend. I am. The pride shone on his face. The knee feels better than new. That's great. It was the reminder she needed that he was fantasy, not reality. She reached for her drink again. I'm flattered you set this up. She began, determined to let them both off the hook gracefully. Why flattered? Her gaze landed on the daisies. You invested serious time and effort to finally get me into this bar. You can't be surprised. Of course I can, she said. I never expected to see you again. His gaze narrowed, and she felt like a hill he'd been ordered to conquer. You never mentioned a bias or rule about not dating soldiers. Why would I? We were in a gym rehabbing injuries. Her immediate protest ran out of steam as a smile spread across his face, infusing his eyes with that charm that drew her in when she should run away. Stop teasing me,
she said, suppressing a laugh.
Oh, Helen, I'm just getting started. His low voice rumbled, stirring her senses, igniting her imagination. For most of her recovery, she'd spent 2 or 3 hours a week in the gym with Alex. Others, too, counting the staff, but none of them could make her laugh or fight through a trial by turns.
Did I ever say thank you? She wondered aloud.
If you stick with me for the evening, we'll call it even.
His eyes lit with a gleam that sent desire lancing through her system.
We never had a PT graduation party, and I get the feeling we're both overdue for some fun. You won't throw any of those silly special ops lines at me. Now that hurts, he said, laying a hand over his heart. Then he laughed. I promise I'll behave until you ask me not to. The wink oversold what he'd surely intended as an earnest pledge, and she laughed. The nice guy under the bravado charm and ripped body appealed to her way more than was wise. Still, it was good to see a friendly face. And nice to pretend her life was normal. All right, she agreed. Let's have this date.
I date with Helen. It had only taken him 3 months of second-guessing his approach in the PT gym and another month of recon once he returned to the area to make it happen. And every moment of anticipation had been worth it. His team often teased him that every woman was his type, or at least the type to fall for his lines and cheesy flirtation. That never bothered Alex. He didn't see the point in doing anything unless he gave it his all. In that gym, sweating through the pain and strain of rehabbing a torn ACL, his heart had knocked him upside the head and begged him to approach Helen differently. Her intelligence came through loud and clear. The sophistication, too, even in the snug, form-fitting leggings and graphic T-shirts she wore to her appointments. Those had stirred up his dreams for weeks. Sitting here across from her, he tried to recall if it had been those gorgeous eyes or the stunning figure that had drawn him in first. A tie for second place, he decided. The way she'd brushed off his first attempt to flirt with her had done it, he thought, remembering. Whoever set this up is missing an opportunity. Alex could feel his brain going numb as he started another set of slow and steady heel slides. Oh, she barely spared him a glance. Patients should get a coupon for a free drink at a nearby bar to drown the pain when each session is over. She'd rolled her eyes and returned to her band pulls, wincing a little as the movement tested her shoulder. It took him longer than he liked to catch his breath as he sat up between sets. Want to help me do the market research? She'd looked his way and raised her eyebrows. No thanks. Back then, there had been pain haunting those sea-green eyes. Pain that had nothing to do with the physical exertion and exercises the therapists dished out. Pain that had faded some in the 3 months since they'd completed their respective post-op PT cycles and gone their separate ways. So bring me up to speed, he suggested. I've missed your face. And her voice, her scent, and all the rest of her. She shot him a look from under her lashes. Then her eyes fell on the flowers, and her expression softened. In his head, he drafted a thank you note to her romantically inclined assistant. As you must have learned through your recon, I'm back at work full-time. She hesitated when her phone flashed with another alert. Excuse me, I keep assuming this is my date canceling, but you're my date. The fact seemed to fluster her all over again. Take it. He'd cleared his schedule and carved out the next 3 days for himself. And her, if he was lucky. No training, no team builders, no operations, only her. He hoped the investment would be a solid start on a personal connection. He intended to show her there was far more to him than the spec ops reputation. No pressure at all. Helen glanced at her phone. She should have turned off the device and given Alex her full attention. That would have been common courtesy. Too late now. There were 5 text messages from an unknown number,
But at the first preview, there was no doubt in her mind who had sent them. We need to talk. Where are you? Done wasting time. Who is that? Tell him you're taken. Her heart slammed against her ribs, and she dropped the phone into her purse. Taking a slow, deep breath, she refused to panic or search the bar for her ex-boyfriend Ian. He was an expert in being a jerk, but he wouldn't dare do anything in public. What's wrong? Alex asked, his gaze serious. She pushed her lips into a smile, though she felt it wobble. It's nothing. We'll have to disagree. I've seen you amused, aggravated, and in physical pain. He circled a finger toward her face. That's veering too close to the pain side of the scale. Nerves fluttered. It was more than a little gratifying to know he'd watched her so closely while she'd been trying not to gape at him. This situation is more of a pain in the neck than my shoulder. She noticed immediately her joke didn't fool Alex. I have a restraining order on an ex-boyfriend. It bothers him. How much? Not enough to talk about tonight. She hoped he would understand. Alex cocked an eyebrow. I respect that. But if you need an assist, remember I can do that too. She couldn't imagine the embarrassment of having Alex and Ian in the same vicinity. He's just a load of bluster. Offer remains, he said. Did you get your tennis serve back yet? She embraced the subject change with enthusiasm. Almost. Tennis had been one unexpected bit of common ground they'd discovered when the television in the waiting room had been showing a professional tournament. A discussion of various players had ensued, making their hour in the PT gym fly by. I'm close to full strength, but I've had to make allowances for accuracy. Do you feel up for a match tomorrow afternoon? The weather is supposed to be fantastic. Her reply fizzled as she caught sight of Ian a few paces away. His face mottled with anger eyes flashing, he stalked right up to their table. So much for the restraining order. She's with me and we're leaving, he stated, grabbing her arm. Fear swamped her. She didn't have the words or actions to shake him off. Long before he'd attacked her and dislocated her shoulder, she'd held her own in self-defense class. Now, every twinge and ache in her shoulder was a shameful reminder that when she'd been under pressure, she'd failed. Suddenly, she was free of Ian's harsh grip, and she found herself staring at Alex's back rather than Ian's face, wondering at his quick intervention. You're mistaken, buddy, Alex said. Despite the music and the other voices, she caught the hard edge in his tone. She moved to stand up for herself. This was her problem, not Alex's. He caught her, stilled her with a hand flat across the side of her hip. Instead of feeling frightened or trapped, she felt only comfort. She's with me. Ian shoved at Alex, the attempt to move him completely ineffective. You're mistaken, Alex repeated. Leave the lady alone. Alex saw the punch coming and blocked it easily, one hand still on Helen's shapely hip. Though he could have dropped the jerk with minimal effort, he restrained himself. She's not available, the man said. Not to you, Alex agreed. The jerk held his ground. Leave. I won't ask nicely again. Helen tried again to get around him. He kept her back out of harm's way. You're in violation of your restraining order, she said from around his shoulder. Alex didn't take his eyes off the other man. This is your ex. Yes, my apologies. He should have put it together based on her reactions when this loser had walked up. The man was spoiling for a fight, but Alex wasn't cowed. He whistled loudly and caught the attention of his friend Dave behind the bar. Alex gave a signal, and Dave lifted his chin in response. What did you do? Helen asked in a hushed voice. Alex focused on the threat. That's my friend up there tending bar. He's calling the cops right now. If you don't want to spend the night in a cell for violating the restraining order, get moving. Furious, the man muttered something under his breath as he turned away. Alex watched him until he was on the other side of the front door. You know the bartender, she asked once the threat was gone. And the owner. Rather than sit across from her, he stood between her and the crowd as she settled onto the bar stool. We've all worked together in the past. In the military. He nodded, though it wasn't really a question. Is that a problem? Of course not.
It was. He could see it, but he couldn't address it or fix it until he understood which part of his career bothered her most. Was it the deployments? Couldn't be the uniforms. No one had ever complained about how he looked in the uniform.
You want me to take you home? No.
She looked at him, her eyes full of doubts and insecurity.
As dates go, this must top your worst of list. The cynical wall around his heart melted. No worries. I'm adaptable. Thanks. Did Mr. Restraining Order have anything to do with your shoulder? Her nod confirmed what he'd always suspected about how she wound up in that PT office. Most people were willing to discuss the events leading to their injuries, usually with self-deprecating bravado. Not Helen. The injury wasn't exactly on purpose, but it opened my eyes to the kind of man he really was. You don't have to talk about it. He covered her hand with his. I'd like to be clear.
The relationship was already rocky. She shook her hair back, and when she met his gaze, her eyes were fierce.
We'd gone dancing that night. He got drunk and thought he could drive us home. She didn't strike him as the type to get into a car with an intoxicated idiot behind the wheel. You didn't let him try, he prompted, when her voice trailed off, her mind clearly tangled in the memories.
No, I took his keys. She rubbed her shoulder absently. He lost his temper and things escalated.
Instead of going home, I went to the hospital in an ambulance. The police took him into custody. Good.
Yes and no, she murmured.
What's not good about that jerk being in custody? He sobered up, but he's still angry with me. Still wants us to be together. Alex did the math. That had been over 6 months ago. His temper simmered, and he wanted all of the details right now. Tell me.
The way his gaze narrowed, waiting for her answer, Helen was more than a little tempted to tell him the whole story.
No matter how attentive or thoughtful, Alex couldn't possibly want to spend the evening listening to a recitation of her low points. She wished for a hole to drop into. Since none appeared, she tried to shift the subject. It doesn't matter. The police have him on their radar. Do they? Alex glared at the door. He got in here. That bothered her more than she could say. She wasn't even sure how he'd found her. I'll update the complaint at the police station tomorrow. Why not now? He angled his head toward the 2 police officers walking in to answer the bartender's call. All the witnesses are here. She couldn't think of a reasonable excuse that didn't sound like an excuse. And really, hadn't she made enough of those before Ian went off the deep end 6 months ago? Their blind date was beyond salvation at this point. One more glitch wouldn't make any difference. Alex's bartender friend let them use the office in the back. It was a tight squeeze for 4 people, but it was better than broadcasting her troubles. The entire time she explained her situation, she was all too aware of Alex at her side. Warm and solid, he tempted her, and his calm demeanor reassured her. He was angry over the incident, but he didn't raise his voice or make idle threats. She imagined when Alex lost his temper, it would be more like being overwhelmed by a glacier. Cold, relentless, and unstoppable. Big enough to hide behind, yet too dangerous to contain. The police were kind enough, but there wasn't much they could do but add this to the rest of the file. When they'd left, and it was only the 2 of them in the office, she turned to Alex. Will you walk me to my car? I'd rather walk you to mine, he replied. The spark in his eyes made her knees weak. Who was she kidding? When he looked at her like that, her whole body quivered like a bowstring. Why are you putting in all this effort? Because you're worth it, he replied. Because I like you. You like me because I didn't fall at your feet at first sight. It's the challenge. I won't deny that I enjoy a challenge, but that's not what this is. He reached out and tucked her hair behind her ear.
She leaned into the touch. What are you after, Alex?
A little time. You intrigue me, Helen. I'd like to get to know you. He touched her forehead. Your mind. The back of his hand coasted over her jaw, up and around her ear. Your smile. He gently massaged the nape of her neck. Your taste. Slowly, his gaze locked with hers, and he eased closer. Close enough that the rise and fall of his chest teased her body. She tipped up her face for his kiss, but he stopped his mouth a whisper away, waiting for something. Please kiss me, Alex. He'd thought she'd never ask. He tried to take it slow, to go easy, and failed spectacularly when she sighed, lips parting under his. Her arms came around his neck, and he drew her close, sinking into the heat and heady sensations as her tongue twined with his. His mind blanked his hands, cruising up and down her body, learning her shape, what she liked or resisted. So far, resistance wasn't an issue. Her sweet and eager responses prodded him on. This was lightning in a bottle. He palmed her hips, gathering the fabric of her skirt into his hands, teasing himself with his first touch of those gorgeous legs. With a little moan, she moved against him. He turned, leaning her back against the door, trailing kisses down the slender column of her throat, inhaling the soft citrus scent of her hair as his caressed his face. A pounding on the other side of the door made her jump and slammed him back into the present with all the subtlety of a freight train. He steadied her and opened the door, blocking the view so she could collect herself. Expecting Dave to tell him to vacate the office, Alex did a double take to see the face of his best friend, Matt Riley. Pardon the interruption, he said toward Helen. Dave asked me to point out he's running a bar, not a hotel. Alex glanced around the small office. Good thing, too. These rooms aren't welcoming at all. They walked out of the office and back toward the bar. Though Helen slipped her hand into his as he made introductions, he braced for a negative reaction to his planting a few friends around the bar. After all the build-up in his mind to this moment, he'd wanted his friends at his back to make sure he didn't chicken out or wreck his one chance with her. A pleasure to meet you, Matt. She gave Alex an arch glance. You posted reinforcements? Standard operating procedure. Matt answered for him as they moved back into the crowded bar area. We've learned Alex often needs extra supervision. Is that so? She asked, clearly amused. At least she wasn't irritated or offended. You're important, Alex said, for her ears only. To Matt, cut it out. You're making me sound incompetent. Are you dismissing the rest of us? Matt queried. Yes, I'll take it from here, Alex said. She was receptive to his setup, and the unexpected interference of her ex was done so things could only improve. Matt looked to Helen. Seriously, ma'am, I'd like to hear it from you. Suddenly, Alex regretted setting up the date here with friends on hand to make sure he didn't screw it up and move too fast. Matt, in particular, understood the risk of letting the right girl slip through his hands. We're good, thanks, Helen said in that serious, laced-up voice that made him want to tease her breathless. I should leave you my number, Matt began. Careful. Alex cut him off with a lethal glare, refusing to let him finish that sentence. We're fine. Grinning now, Matt faded into the crowd. Would you like to find a quieter spot? Alex asked Helen. She twirled the bouquet of daisies. How about my place? She suggested. He did a double take, but there was no mistaking the sexy invitation in her eyes as she smiled over the flowers. These need some water. She looped her hand through his arm. And I'd like another kiss. For starters. He was speechless. She gave his arm a squeeze. Don't worry. I understand what you do. I know this is a date, not a long-term commitment. He should probably tell her he wanted more than a kiss or a one-night stand, but he had to start convincing of that her somehow. As they left the bar, Helen couldn't believe she'd invited him over, but she wouldn't rescind the offer now. Alex brought out a bold and daring side of her she barely recognized. This sizzling connection was too amazing to pass up even if it couldn't become anything more. First date or not, it wasn't as if they'd just met an hour ago. They'd become friends of a sort, and she'd witnessed his dedication and work ethic firsthand during the shared misery and victories of PT. He treated people with respect, and he had a great sense of humor. "This is me," she said, stopping when they reached her car. Honestly, she was impressed she hadn't floated away. The man had that kind of impact on her system. He pulled her close and gave her a kiss with such soft heat and tantalizing promises, it just spun her out. "I'll follow you over," he said. "You're assuming I can remember my way home," she murmured. His lips tilted into a tempting grin. "You could always leave your car and ride with me." She laughed, experiencing a freedom she'd nearly forgotten. She put her address into his phone for him. "We'll just call the drive time foreplay." "I'll second that." His hands skimmed up her arms and into her hair, lifting it off her neck. The cool evening breeze, a contrast to his warm touch, sent goosebumps racing over her skin. He kissed her once more, quick and fast, before stepping back on a groan. "Drive fast," he said, "but be safe." He reached around her and opened the door for her to slide behind the wheel. The bar was only a few minutes from her apartment, but at the moment, with her body buzzing, it might as well be on the other side of the continent. She groaned when the first stoplight turned red. Desperate for a distraction, she reached over to turn on the radio. "Helen!" she screamed as Ian's face appeared between the front seats. The car jerked as her foot came off the brake in her shock. "Quiet." He flashed a gun. "I'll use this." She checked the rear-view mirror, wondering if Alex could see Ian wedged into the well between the front and rear passenger seats. "What are you doing?" "Taking back what's mine," he snarled. "It's green," he added when the light changed. "Drive." She started forward through the intersection, staying just under the speed limit as she tried to think. Ian had found her after she'd moved last month, and he knew the area as well as she did. She changed lanes. She might be able to drive by the police station before he realized what she was up to. "Quit screwing around!" The light's red. She slowed down to make sure and stopped. "Get out of here now while you can." "I have the gun," he snarled. "I give the orders here. Drive straight to your house." She couldn't let him get away with this. Though it chafed her pride, she begged. "Ian, please." "That's better, Helen. Hurry it up now." Sure, Alex had told her to drive safe, but she was barely going the speed limit, and twice already he'd almost tapped her bumper. Stopped at a traffic light, he used the hands-free option to call her. The phone rang, and a moment later he saw her head move, then she floored it through the red light. Horns blared as unhappy drivers swerved to avoid her. What the hell? Helen wasn't the type to pull that sort of dumb stunt. It took precious seconds for him to slip through the cross traffic and catch up with her. On the straight road, he could see her change lanes again, flash her turn signal, then keep right on going. Something was definitely wrong, he thought, weaving his way closer. She braked hard again, and he thought he saw something substantial, like a person behind the passenger seat. A chill settled at the back of his neck. At the last second, she turned a block before the turn that was highlighted on his navigation app. Enough of this. He used the hands-free to call the police and explained the situation. He gave the license plate and description of her car and her anticipated destination. The dispatcher promised to send a unit through the area. He was dialing Matt's number for backup when his phone rang. He toggled the button on his steering wheel to answer. Hi, Alex. Helen's voice cracked on his name. I'm almost there, baby. Yeah. He heard her whisper an oath. I've changed my mind. About tonight. I need a rain check. Why's that? As long as he kept her talking, he knew she was okay. Just not feeling well, she said. A last rep kind of thing. I remember he said, recognizing the meaning behind the phrase. During their time in the PT gym, they would all joke that it was the last rep that was the real killer. She was in serious trouble. Her lousy ex or something else. Thanks for understanding, she said. I'll call Timur. The call ended before she finished. He gripped the steering wheel and shook it. That chill turned to a prickle of dread and crept down his spine. He followed the navigation prompts toward her apartment complex, then pulled into a guest space in front of the office and checked the map to verify her building among the others. A police cruiser passed behind him, most likely the unit the dispatcher had promised. Good. Helen would need all the help they could give her. Confident in his quick assessment of the neighborhood, Alex silenced his phone and tucked it into his back pocket. He reached across the seat and opened the glove box to retrieve the handgun he kept inside. With a silent plea for her to hang on, Alex locked his car and crept into the shadows to stage a rescue. Whatever was happening, he would not let her be hurt again. Rescue, he chanted inside his head as he jogged toward her building. This would not turn into a recovery operation.